Like, bro, I love the Field of 68 After Dark. I listen to it all the time.
This is Duke head coach John Shire. Check out Field of 68 After Dark.
This is Xavier head coach Sean Miller. I highly encourage you to take a look at After Dark, led by the one and only John Phantom.
Now, listen to you guys every morning when I'm getting ready. From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors. This is Field of 68 After Dark.
That's right. Welcome into the Field of 68 After Dark. Where can you find us? Like, subscribe on YouTube or on SiriusXM channel 84. That's College Sports Radio. We got a packed show tonight as we are just about to get into the nitty-gritty of the NCAA Tournament. The Sweet 16 kicks off tomorrow. We will get into that a little bit later. We got a lot of coaching movement. We got a lot of transfers in the portal. We're going to hit all of it today. We got a packed show. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by LaVall Jordan and Kevin Sweeney of Sports Illustrated. So, fellas, to kick things off, been quite the controversial topic, I guess, in college basketball. I think Jeff Goodman and Dave Portnoy just fired off a few other tweets at each other. Ed Cooley was introduced at Georgetown today. And LaVall, I'll start with you. He said, if I'm the coach at Georgetown, which, to Dave Portnoy's chagrin, he is, anything is possible. Do you agree that anything is possible with Ed Cooley as the coach at Georgetown?
Totally agree. It's obviously the fans, Providence fans, and everything that they feel, is probably legitimate. You don't want to lose your coach, especially when you're doing well, and you definitely don't want to lose them in their conference. But I know Ed personally. And the job he's done at Providence has been phenomenal. And, for what Georgetown needs, one, just a good coach in terms of just X's and O's and development and all the things that come along with coaching, but also a personality. Like Big John was a personality in a brand and building the brand. And Ed's, that's kind of what he is. Like he's a great marketer. He's a really good recruiter. And, some of the guys that maybe you couldn't get at Providence, you can get at Georgetown. Jeff Greens and Greg Monroe's and, those guys, like they'll come to Georgetown. And so, in terms of the job itself and the potential of the job for certain, when Ed says, hey, anything's possible, well, we know it's possible. You can win a national championship there. Not that you couldn't do it anywhere else. There's a lot of teams, Loyola Chicago's in the Final Four, like you got a shot, but you could have a consistent chance, annually at Georgetown to be in that conversation for sure.
Kevin, how can Ed, and I guess how quickly can Ed make Georgetown matter again?
I mean, I think he's done a really good job at Providence in the portal. I mean, you look at this year, they had to rebuild it a little bit and got Devin Carter and got Bryce Hopkins, and we're right back in the thick of things in the Big East. And obviously, I think culturally there's a lot more to fix at Georgetown, and there's a lot more stuff in terms of rebuilding the program outside of just rebuilding the roster that he has to do to really get it to true relevance. But I think without a doubt, like they can compete right away. Like they're not resigned to last place for the next 2 years like you would have been 10 years ago when you couldn't flip a roster as quickly. I thought that Cooley's comments today, and I know a lot was made of, he said the divine providence thing, we can win championships, whatever. Like,
right.
To me, like the comment that I noticed the most was he said he wanted to get 80% of the students to a game at some point. Right. And that may not be realistic. And it's Georgetown, right? It's in a city. There's lots to do. There's lots of, it's a high academic place. People care about other stuff. Like I went, it's not Northwestern. Like I'm a Northwestern guy. And there was just 50% of the kids that were never going to care. Right. Like Georgetown's not quite that, but it's something.
We would show up at Northwestern, Kevin. And I don't know if this was on purpose, like to just mess with our guys when I was at Iowa and I was at Michigan. They'd be in the student section, like we'd be warming up, they're reading books.
Yes.
And I'm like, is that just to throw everybody off, or are they really studying?
It's not as a joke. Like I always thought it was, and like I met the people who did it, and I was like, it's not a joke. This is just how they are. It's crazy. Like, and Georgetown's not that, but Georgetown's also not like Georgetown is not Duke, right? Like there's certain percentage of the student body that's just never going to care about basketball. But I think you saw how dry it got in that building the last few years, right? It's an NBA gym. It's big. It's not on campus. And I think one of the biggest reasons why Ed Cooley is such an amazing hire for Georgetown is he will do everything he can to get students back in that building, to get people back in that building, and go engage that community.
Here, Ed is as engaging. Like, he will be in the cafeteria. He will be, I mean, he'll be all over campus. I mean, he was unbelievable at Providence. And when you look at what used to be the dunk, you know, and the what he built there in terms of just atmosphere alone, you know, they got a DJ in the building, the students who had to singing Taylor Swift in the second half. And like, all of that is Ed. So Ed and Lee Reed are going to get together. Lee's awesome. You know, I know Lee personally as well. And there's going to be a list of here's what we need. Like, Providence's practice facility and the whole deal. There's a barber shop in the practice facility at Providence now for guys to get there. Like, that wasn't there. And that's all Ed Cooley. They got 7 different uniforms. They got a pink. They got all the stuff that the kids like. So they're just going to sit down and just hash through the list, and it's going to be there. And it's going to be there with all the support, you know, the endowment and the alumni. And so it's coming. It's coming.
Well, and I think to that point, because you've seen the back and forth, right? I think because of all the things that Ed did at Providence, add to it, he's a Providence guy, but I think that's why there are so many hurt feelings, you know, because of all the progress that was made there. And when I think about these type of moves, because you see fewer and fewer of them, head coaches leaving for other head coaching jobs at similar levels, right? You see less and less of that these days. But my operating theory is a fan base copes with that by telling themselves, oh, he lied. Oh, he was calling recruits while he was still here. It's never that the coach left. It's how he left. And that's how they rationalize it, right? I was here in Memphis when John Calipari left for Kentucky. And I remember what everybody was saying. He was in the house. He was calling John Wall. He was calling Boogie Cousins. They never can rationalize it with the truth, which is he had topped out at Providence. He had done what you're going to do at Providence. He's leaving it in a better place, and he's taking a more prestigious job where he's going to have more opportunities. But fans have a hard time accepting that. And I think that's why you're seeing, right, the back and forth like we saw today between Jeff Goodman and some others.
I mean, I just think at the end of the day, right, like, I'm sure it was hard for him to leave. And I think it's one of the reasons it's hard for him to leave is because of what they accomplished there. Right. Like,
when you build it your way.
Yeah.
Like, when you get to do it your way, that makes it difficult. You're right.
And had a lot of success, right? Like when he got the job, the dream was to get Providence to the place where they could win a Big East championship, go to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. They accomplished that. And I think, Coach, you could probably speak to this better than either of us could. Like, there's got to be a certain level mentally where, like, you've climbed what you thought was the realistic mountaintop, and trying to go to work every day and do that again is really hard. And when you have the opportunity in front of you to go to Georgetown, I'm sure it was hard. And again, it's not to say he couldn't have stayed at Providence for the rest of his life and had the best career ever and enjoyed it and been the man. And we don't need to tell Ed Cooley whether he should have taken or shouldn't have taken the job. Right.
Yeah.
But I just think at the end of the day, like, there has to be something to be said of, like, sometimes you just need to start something new. And Georgetown is kind of a blank canvas.
And people don't get, you know, sometimes being home might not be everything it's cracked up to be either. You know, just from a personal standpoint. And so, you know, there's a lot of factors. It was a hard decision. I know, like I said, again, I know Ed. It was not an easy decision for him. You know, I know the fans and how, you know, how it went down and that's what they go to. But it's like everybody's recruiting in the portal, whether you're still playing, whether you're not playing, you have to be, you know, or you're behind. Yeah. And kids commit to coaches more, I would say, more so than they commit to schools. So all of those things were happening. But that's normal. It's just the nature of the business. I think it's a great fit. I think Ed's going to do a phenomenal job. I think Providence will be fine. Kim English is a fantastic coach. I know him. He's a good young coach. They just got to get behind Kim. Like, they'll be fine because he does a heck of a job. And it makes for great Big East. It makes for a great Big East moving forward in terms of just Patino at St. John's and Ed now. And it's good when you have a little, but you look up and down, UConn, Marquette, Creighton,
crazy.
and you're going to jump in like Georgetown to St. John's. It won't take too long. And, it's like Villanova. I'm telling you, like, that's not going anywhere. Kyle will get it back where it needs to be. And, man, you're going to be 7-8 teams deep annually in terms of tournament teams.
Yeah, well, I hope it works because college basketball is a better product when Georgetown is relevant. So I'm very hopeful that Ed can make some noise there. Maybe a bit of an easier decision today in the coaching world. Notre Dame gets the bag from Micah Shrewsberry moving from Penn State to Notre Dame. Kevin, what do you make of this? Was this just the obvious move for Notre Dame given the year that he's coming off of?
I mean, it's a no-brainer for them. I think it might have been a little bit challenging for Shrewsberry to leave a place that gave me an opportunity that was, maybe not as invested as it needed to be in basketball in the past, but I think in recent days has really tried to pony up and be competitive and keep a guy that they thought could be the long-term leader of their program. But I think at the end of the day, right, he's an Indiana guy. He gets to come home. He gets reportedly over $4 million per year on a 7-year deal. That'll go a long way in South Bend. And I just think incredibly highly of Micah Shrewsberry and the job he did at Penn State, because I think it takes an incredible nerve and an incredible confidence in yourself to zig when everyone else zags. And he bought into like a style of offense that he believed in that was so different than everyone else was doing in the Big Ten. And if it failed, right, like they didn't have a plan B size wise, right? Like if it failed and they just couldn't deal with anyone on the inside, they were going to go 12-20 this year. And he was like, I don't care. Like, I'm all in. I believe in this. I believe in what we have. I believe in the guys we're recruiting, the style of style of player we're involved with. And it got Penn State to the NCAA tournament. And that's no small feat at that place. And didn't just get him there, got him to the Big Ten championship game, got him right in the game at the very end against a really excellent Texas team, right? Like, just to have that confidence as a first-time head coach, to me, just speaks volumes about the guy he will be for the next 15 years as a college coach. Because I just think when you have that like level of belief and trust in yourself and what you're building, you're going to be successful. And I think he'll do really good things at Notre Dame.
LaVall, real quickly,
Yes,
got
sir.
a couple of minutes here in the ACC, which is maybe not the ACC that we've seen, the last several years. I mean, can this be quick for Micah and his staff?
Look, with the portal now, anything can happen quickly.
Yep.
And in terms of and Micah did that, fairly quickly at Penn State, getting guys to mesh, coming up with a unique way that could, kind of shock the league in a lot of ways, with the small ball and the, what you guys call it. I love it. They call it booty ball with Pickett. He was out there like Mark Jackson, old school. But, Micah, obviously he was at IU South Bend. That was his first head coaching job. So he's been there. So it's coming home. I know him really, really well. He's got Butler ties with his family and all. So we talk. I actually talked to him right before they went to the Big Ten tournament, and he was just trying to get a win. He wasn't worried about jobs or anything. He just wanted to get into the tournament because they weren't completely in. Here, the ACC, when you look and you say, all right, Duke's Duke, Carolina's Carolina, but Coach K's gone and so is Roy Williams. Boeheim just retired, and Tony Bennett's still at Virginia, and Leonard Hamilton's still at Florida State. Florida State was injury riddled this year and had some suspensions and things like that. But when you think about the top of the ACC in recent history, it's Florida
Miami,
State,
right?
Yeah, Duke, Carolina, Miami.
Yep.
After that, it's open,
No doubt.
right? And so you're saying, hey, Pitt. Jeff Capel made a run this year. Clemson was winning the ACC at one point this year. Kevin Keats has done a good job of, taking advantage of the portal and getting NC State back. Wake Forest, Steve Forbes comes into Wake Forest and got it right now. Like, they were in the tournament right away. So why can't Micah Shrewsberry do that at Notre Dame? Damon Stoudemire down to Georgia Tech. These new guys coming into the league. Tony Bennett ain't going anywhere. Huber's he's got to figure it out, but they're going to get talent at Carolina and Duke and Shire. He did a heck of a job in year one. But, after you get past like 4, it's open, man. And so Micah's going to, what he gets, he'll work with. He's proven that. Like he worked with what he had Penn State. You had to be unique. You had to. Right? You can't go in there and do what everybody else is doing in the league when you're at Penn State. Challenge at Notre Dame is, you're in the Midwest, but you're playing in the ACC. And so it's hard when kids grow up in Indiana, they want to go to Indiana. Or Purdue. It's hard to get Indiana kids. Mike Bray did a good job with the DMV kids, with the East Coast kids, recruiting them to come to Notre Dame because they were going to go back home and play near their families out that way. And then the admission stuff like transfers getting in with the portal being what it is now. You got to be able to get transfers in terms of the admissions piece. So, but I'm sure he talked about that before he took the job, right? He wouldn't have taken it. He wouldn't have taken it. So
exactly.
I'm excited for him, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with it.
Yeah. So speaking of transfers, lots of potentially, big impact guys put their name in the portal. Maybe when we get back, we'll be able to pick some spots for Kerr Kriisa, right? For Graham EK from Wyoming. Maybe we can, find a landing spot for those guys when we get back. You're listening to Field of 68 After Dark right here on the Field of 68 YouTube channel, Sirius XM channel 84. Back after this.
You're clear.
And even though he's not with us, he's still with us in spirit. We've got a word from Rob Doster.
Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can get a little extra sweat during March Madness and win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in this weekend's games. In Pick'em, all you do is predict whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals, whether that's points, rebounds, whatever. For example, if you're like me and you think Zach Edey is going to go nuts in this tournament, take higher on his points projection, add up to 4 more picks, and if you hit them all, you can win 20 times your money on a single game. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough that dummies like Jeff Goodman have even figured it out. So go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, FIELD, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Now is the time to get in on the madness. So remember, underdogfantasy.com, promo code FIELD.
Out there.
Thank God for that.
20 seconds till you're live. Ten seconds. There you go.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We're here on YouTube. We're on Sirius XM channel 84. Sweet 16 kicks off tomorrow. Kevin's in Vegas. We're doing you a favor, man. We're keeping you out of the casinos. I'm trying to do the very best I can, but I got an hour with you. So we're doing you a solid by keeping you out, man. You a big gambler?
I'm no Jeff Goodman. I am a little perturbed because I'm staying at New York, and like right outside my window is the roller coaster.
Yeah,
I've been to Vegas.
Yeah.
So like I keep hearing like random screams outside my window, and I can't tell if like my hotel is like haunted or if it's just people going down the coaster.
It's just people going down, man. That's all. So I got you for another 40 minutes. After that, you're on your own. But we mentioned it. Lots of impact guys have put their name into the transfer portal. And, look, I think this is a great place to start with Kerr Kriisa there from Arizona. And maybe, maybe it's Sean Miller bound. Maybe it's that simple. But LaVall, I want to ask you a question about him, more so where we think he's headed. How do you coach a guy like that? And is it a consideration when you're thinking, okay, can I coach him? Can I bring it? Because he's a wild man, right? Like there's a flair to him, which I love. But how do you coach a guy like Kerr?
You play. He's got a personality that you like. I think he's a competitive kid, and he has a personality which you're not to get. Like we had Nick Stauskas when we were at Michigan. Nick had some stuff. And you kind of had to channel it in a good place, and he ended up being Big Ten Player of the Year for us. But there was times where you had to put him in check also, especially in practices, and he get a little mouthy, but love him to death, because he could play, and you wanted him on your side. So I think Kerr, the right coach, that has the right amount of discipline, but also allows the right amount of freedom, that it'd be a good mesh, for a guy like him to be productive and kind of reach his potential.
What does a place like that look like for Kerr, Kevin?
Honestly, like I don't really know. In my head, it looks like Arizona, right? I mean, this is not to trash the kid's decision. Like I don't know what
Arizona.
I don't know what he's like, what he's looking for.
Yeah,
but I just think, like, to me, a place where you shoot a lot of threes, you have bigs who can really, really play, so you're not relying on him to score a ton. Yeah. Who can run, a place with a big fan base that he can play to, right? Like that was Arizona. That checked all the boxes. And again, he's been through a lot. He committed to Sean Miller originally. They dealt with the COVID year. He also pick up and just say, I'm going overseas and making money, right? Like he has a passport. It's where he's from, right? Like because of NIL being limited in the United States for overseas kids, he might not be the case of a kid who will make more money in college versus overseas. So I don't know what he will do, but I think, again, you're looking for a place that needs a point guard that's played in some big games, needs a guy who has some flair and has some stuff to him, like
Xavier, maybe. No Boom, no Kobe Jones, no Adam Kunkel coming back.
I mean, yeah, it just kind of feels like that's the spot, right? Like
it would be something. I mean, I will say this: any opportunity we get to watch Kerr Kriisa play against Rick Pitino would be something I would pay. Like, that should be on pay-per-view television. It would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the European Marshall Henderson, man. Like that, like those are the vibes I get from Kerr. Which he's a better passer. Like Marshall was never a passer, right? Like, I'm not trying to compare their game, but just in terms of like the way they carry themselves, right? Like there's a swag to that, which is not going to be for every coach either, though. And I think that's the
no,
key.
You got to be able to channel. I do know Sean, like Fremantle. Like what he did with Fremantle this year was like Fremantle has a little Kerr Kriisa personality stuff, coaching against him in him, and so does Kunkel. Those guys and Sean did a good job with those guys. So I know one guy that could do it.
Yeah, no doubt. That would make sense to me. A couple other guys.
Bruce Pearl's a guy that could do it. I would
absolutely love to see Kerr Kriisa on an SEC campus. like that would he look like, I mean, I'm in the South, like they would worship that dude, right? Like he would be so welcome to those, obviously the right place. But I mean, if it doesn't fit in terms of like defensively, but if he went to a place like Tennessee, you know what I mean? Like it's just fun to think about. But I'll be super intrigued with ultimately where he winds up. Anyway, there's some other transfers who entered their name. Graham Ike from Wyoming, who was a stud, just one of the best bigs, and I assume everybody in the world is going to be trying to get in on him. Reese Dixon Waters from USC, Jamison Battle. Most of these guys are going to come in the top 10, top 20 of the transfer portal rankings. LaVall, I want to ask you, how, more so than any individual player, how do you maintain a culture in this new age we're in? Because the way it used to be,
good question,
was you had upperclassmen, right? Like you just had the juniors and the seniors who maybe they redshirted and maybe they developed and they know exactly what you expect and they know, what needs to be done in the summer. And now we live in the Wild West. I think it's good for the sport, but inevitably it does change the way rosters are built and chemistry is built. So how do you maintain a culture when there's such turnover year in and year out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think every coaches are trying to figure that out, how much portaling, they actually want to do. And some are more into it than others. Eric Musselman, like that's what he did in Nevada. So he's used to it. He's doing it at Arkansas. So that's kind of his norm. I think the guys like Steve Forbes at Wake Forest, for instance, he comes from a JUCO background, Chris Beard. So they've done that before. I think the program guys are going to continue to do what they do. The Tony Bennett's of the world, the Greg Gards of the world, Kyle Neptune at at Villanova, they'll continue to do that and then splash in, a transfer here and there, but it won't be built with a roster full of them. I do think you need that core group that does know what you want and know how things are done. They know where the gym is, like, as coaches say. And so you're not teaching everybody everything every year because that can get exhausting. And then I think the summer is important. They've added now these 2 new positions that can get on the court, so you can have 2 more guys. Because I think those summer, that experience in the summer when you're just getting to know each other, you might have 4 or 5 new guys. I think the mid-major guys is that's where probably more than the Power 6, because that's where you could develop, redshirt, get old, and then go in a tournament and win and shock somebody. And now your best players are going in the portal to level up. At most places. And so those are the programs that I don't like it for, because, you want to see that. But it also allows, for, if they can get some guys to come down and have an impact. So you just kind of got to figure out what's best for you, what suits you as a coach, how much you can stand, so many new guys every single year. And some can stomach that more than others.
One stud that's not entering his name into the transfer portal is Armando Bacot for North Carolina. Kevin, what does this mean? He was tweeting, "If you want to play with me, DM me." I don't know what that says about, his guards there. I don't know what the indictment might be there. But how important is that for the Tar Heels and what they're trying to honestly get back to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think Armando was the problem this year. I don't even think that I don't think any one player was the problem, right? I think it was the entirety of the group. And I think if you're North Carolina, you happily take him back and you try to figure out how to best surround him with the guys that will help him win, because he is an all-time great Tar Heel. He took you to a national championship game. He's going to be potentially the all-time leading rebounder in college basketball history after this COVID year, beating Kenneth Faried. Like he's a tremendous player and just was not necessarily healthy today or this season, was dealing with that, was dealing with all the expectations and the pressure. And I honestly think that going into next year where everybody else, is saying how bad they suck and how much of a disappointment and how much bust they are, will be the best thing for him, will be the best thing for Carolina. And look, they've got a lot of work to do this spring. There's going to be turnover potentially in the backcourt. There's going to be turnover. Overall, they've already seen it with, some guys like Puff Johnson going in the portal, Styles, like guys like that. So, Hubert's got to find the right guys. And I do think if you're him, you want to be careful of like handing the reins too much to Armando, right? Because this isn't a podcast. This is a basketball team, right? It can't be all about personalities and fun and Twitter and posting on Instagram, right? It has to be about basketball. But I think obviously Carolina's a better team when they have him. And so it's used for them. And I think a big momentum thing for this offseason after everything they've gone through the last few months.
Just have a couple minutes here, LaVall. How attractive is that situation if you're, a guard, a big time guard out there? Like, is it still something that you're, chomping to be a part of, or are you a little bit skittish based on what happened last season?
I mean, Carolina's Carolina, in terms of just the attraction. So I think that's more the attraction maybe than playing with Armand. But everybody knows what he's capable of if you were playing college basketball. It's the power, it's NIL now.
Yep.
4 years ago, Armando Bacot is not coming back.
No,
we
no
all
doubt.
know that.
Yep.
I think Zach Edey's sitting over there contemplating. He's got a decision to make because, in the NBA style big, they don't necessarily fit. So you come back and, be what Oscar Sheboy was at Kentucky and make who knows how much money through NIL. But I think it's Carolina's Carolina. They're going to have good guards. I think the pieces have to fit, is what they learned this year and around Armand. If he is coming back, like there's a way to play with a guy like Armando Bacot that has to make sense, and everybody has to be on board with playing that way from coach's vision.
Yeah. Well, look, we have a lot to get to here on the show. The Sweet 16, of course, kicks off Tomorrow, we're going to go through the games, maybe pick some winners here as we get ready for the meet here, the big time parts of the NCAA tournament. Get into that when we come back. You're listening to Field of 68 After Dark. We're here on YouTube and on SiriusXM channel 84. Back after this.
You're clear.
Yeah, my bracket's messed up, right? I think yours is messed up. Everybody's is messed up. I don't think there's a bracket out there that anybody's proud of. But there's good news because Run Your Pool is hosting a Sweet 16 pool for us. Right now, there's a $500 prize pool for the Sweet 16 challenge. So you get to compete against us again, and make sure that you check out the Run Your Pool site if you need to host any bracket challenge or pool. They have more than 50 game types for every sport you can think of, from a traditional bracket pool to Survivor games, head-to-head games, Pick X games, and my favorite, squares. Scoring is customizable. You can tailor your rules to your liking. All you got to do is go to play.runyourpool.com/field68. Get your picks in before the Sweet 16 tips off tomorrow.
You got 30 seconds here.
Cool.
That's a lot of time there.
Down to 10. Here you go.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We are on YouTube. Like, subscribe. We'll get to the questions and the afters. You guys know the drill. We're on SiriusXM channel 84, and we've talked transfers, we've talked coaches, but there are games, ladies and gentlemen. There are big-time games. The Sweet 16 kicks off tomorrow with, I believe, Mr. New York City, Marquise Noel in Madison Square Garden, Michigan State versus Kansas State. In terms of what's going to decide this game, LaVall, what is it going to come down to between Michigan State and Kansas State in terms of who's moving on to the Elite Eight?
I mean, it's kind of simple. Can Michigan State defensively contain Marquise Noel? Because Kentucky couldn't. I mean, he was by far and away the best player on the floor. I think that, and I think Michigan State showed they only made 2 threes and beat Marquette. They had more turnovers than assists, which isn't their norm. But I thought defensively, how they contained Tyler Kolek, who's a wizard. I watched him all year, covered their games, and Biggie's played in the way he creates for his teammates. And so, Coach Izzo has had a couple days to prepare. He only had 1 day to prepare for Tyler Kolek. He's had a few days here to get a game plan together for Marquise Noel, and I think that's a big deal. I think the other big factor is Joey Hauser. Right, when he shoots the ball well, Michigan State is just that much harder to beat. And so, I think those 2 things are a factor, for in my opinion.
Hey, Kevin, is there any part of this, that surprises you about Michigan State, the fact that they're here?
Not really. I mean, it's Izzo, right? Like, I mean, I have been the biggest defender of this Marquette team all year. I thought Marquette had a chance to go to the Final Four. I thought, Kolek was great, and just the way that they were prepared, it was vintage. It was vintage Izzo. And it'll be another great test for Jerome Tang, because I thought he did an unbelievable job in that matchup with Kentucky of, Cal was blitzing those ball screens early in the game, and it was like, how are they going to generate offense if Noel can't do it? And they made some smart adjustments, in the first half, just getting away from some of their ball screen stuff, and the second half getting it on the side and have an opportunity to make plays. Like and Noel explodes. And obviously the game gets decided because K-State got hot at the end from 3 and Kentucky didn't. And that may just be the deal, right? That might be who wins this game is does, Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel outshoot Tyson Walker and Jaden Akins and Joey Hauser, right? That might be the deal. But I'm just really excited to watch the coaching chess match, because I think, obviously Jerome Tang gets a lot of love for oh my gosh, look at, he's dancing in the locker room. He's rapping little baby. He's hanging around, right? Like
I love it.
He's recruiting. It's
He's
great.
just
It's fun.
leaning
It's
into it,
awesome.
man. It's awesome.
But that dude can also really coach basketball.
Agreed.
And was, a huge part of Baylor's defense, and now has done just an amazing job with K-State and putting them in positions to win. I think in March, people tend to pick Michigan State because they think it's a coaching mismatch with Izzo every time. And this is probably thinking a little too high of Jerome Tang because it's year one, but he's proven already he can go up against Bill Self and John Calipari and big name coaches and hold his weight. And I think that's huge in a game like this at MSG.
I don't think it's too high because I think because it's year one and they're here. Real quickly, for me, Keontae Johnson's got to play better if they're going to move on. If they're going to win tomorrow, I thought he struggled with the physicality. And everybody's going to honestly fucking struggle with the physicality of Sheboy, right? But I thought, especially in that game, and Michigan State's going to bring the same toughness. So I feel like you have to get a better game from him. And I know Noel is the story because he went berserk. But in terms of what's going to win the game tomorrow, I think you need, your best player to show up. And if he does, I think they're moving on. But if it just comes down to, Marquise Noel making crazy circus shots, I'm not sure that they will be playing in the Elite Eight. We shall see.
It'll be fun to
Mr.
watch
New York City.
Malik Hall, which I'm sure will draw, him. That'll be a fun matchup to watch because, similar build and similar size, and Malik will have to do the job. The other part is they're going to have to keep Michigan State off the glass.
Yep.
They
couldn't do that against Kentucky.
Yeah, and I think that was Oscar's of different. He's a different animal.
He is.
But it is something that's emphasized. You go to any Michigan State practice, it is something that is heavily emphasized. And it's not one of Izzo's best rebounding teams, but Sissoko had 3 offensive rebounds in the first game. Malik had 2. Joey Hauser would get in there, and Kansas State isn't great on the glass.
Yeah, so it's one of the more intriguing games, I think, tomorrow. Florida Atlantic, Tennessee. This is fun because, I remember in January and February, I know you guys have heard the line about Rick Barnes is the college basketball flu, right? You guys have heard that line?
I have not.
Okay, I don't know if I've heard that one.
Okay, so they say about Rick Barnes, right? They say he starts to really pick up steam as the college basketball flu in November, peaks in January, gone by March, right? That's what they say about Rick Barnes. He's a college basketball flu. But I feel like, look, college basketball and the NCAA tournament is so much about breaks. And is this FAU team, as good as they are, can they be considered a break for the Vols? Kevin?
I think if you're looking at the bracket on Selection Sunday night and you're seeing, we might have to beat Duke and then either Memphis or Purdue and then potentially Kentucky or Marquette or, something like that. Now it's all right, our path to the Final Four might be FAU and K-State. You probably live with that, right? Just talent-wise, right? Tennessee is just a little bit more advanced physically than either of those teams. But, I think discounting FAU here would be foolish because, look, obviously Tennessee has proven they can beat anyone in the country when shots fall. And at the end of the day against Duke, yes, they were great on the glass. Yes, they were tough. Yes, they were the more physical team. But Olivier Kamoa also made 3 threes. And they're not going to lose many games when Olivier Kamoa makes 3 threes. But when they shoot 3 for 23 from 3, which they are apt to do, they've done it before. They did it last year in the NCAA tournament against Michigan. They are very vulnerable. And FAU is going to have some matchups to potentially create with their guards because they're going to go small and pull guys like Kamoa, whoever's going to play the 4, whether that's Adu, whether that's Kamoa, one of these guys for Tennessee. They can pull them away from the basket and drive those dudes and try to take advantage of mismatches. And there's a DNA that comes with winning 33 games in a season. That's what FAU's got. And so I will not be surprised at all if they're right in this game. But look, it's an opportunity for Tennessee because you look at this bracket and you say there's a real chance we can get to the Final Four. And like you said, John, they silence some questions about and whether those questions are fair or not, right?
Yep.
That is the narrative with him, just like it's going to be the narrative with Matt Painter. It was the narrative with Tony Bennett until he broke through. When you are not the guy, when you are not really making noise in March consistently, people are going to question who you are in this business. And Rick Barnes has proven he's outstanding at this and building great teams, and they're really good every year. But a Final Four this season, particularly after losing Ziegler, would be a huge mark on his resume, and I think a big silencer to a lot of the people who've been maybe unfairly critical of him over the last several years.
Yeah, I don't. I can't stand all those narratives. Yeah, as a coach, it's like, hey, Rick Barnes is a really good coach. I don't care what he does moving forward. Like, he's done it at Providence, he's done it at George Mason, he's done it at Texas, he's doing it at Tennessee. Like, come on, let's stop with the with this stuff. But it's a fun matchup because John L. Davis he's a really good basketball player. Man, that kid is good. He is fun to watch. He's not afraid, so he's gonna just relish he's here for everything that Tennessee is gonna bring to the table.
Yep.
And I just like watching him play. Like, he does not back down. What Coach has done to get Coach Barnes, I'm speaking of, to get them to this point without Zakai Ziegler, like, tremendous job. Went away from the ball screens and the pick and roll as much, playing more off the ball. How the game's called is going to be important because Tennessee is extremely physical in terms of how they play. And again, the game will be on the glass, right? They know their limitations offensively, but they are going to pound it on the glass. Can Florida Atlantic, keep them off the glass? I think that's where the physicality will come into effect more than anything.
LaVall, I'm curious, quick, just from your perspective as a coach, because I was thinking about this earlier today. A team like Tennessee that loses a guy as important as Ziegler, do you think it can be, obviously you don't want to lose your point guard, but do you think it can be kind of a blessing in disguise and it forced them to redefine who they were a little bit and get back to, we're tougher than you, we're more physical than you, we're going to hammer you on the glass, and some of the other stuff, shooting the three, they've gotten away from a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think that's who they were in general anyway. I do think they get bigger in terms of matchups across the board.
Right.
So now you're more switchable. You're not, maybe as worried about Zakai having to, keeping him off a matchup in the post. And so you get to take away maybe a few more things defensively. And they've done that. And then, obviously, again, playing off the ball is a different deal. Your post guys come into play. So when you see what Kumwa did, they come into more of a role without Zakai creating, not everything. They still play that way, but he had the ball in his hands quite a bit just to create for others. And so it does change. And, sometimes it can make you, I don't want to say better, but it makes you different defensively for certain.
A few minutes here before we head to break. I do want to ask you guys, we have an elite guard matchup between Miami and Houston. You talk about Shed and Sasser and Wong.
Get your popcorn ready.
Nigel Pack. But I'm gonna pose it to you like this. If Houston plays the way they played in the second half of that Auburn game, who is beating them?
Good luck.
You're not.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, and I think that'll be the telltale. The first half will go how good. Kelvin Sampson's going to go in the locker room. Like, this is what happens. So however the first half goes, like, Kelvin goes in the locker room and then things change. And can Miami handle that?
Yep.
Because they're dynamic. I mean, as dynamic as anybody in the country with the guards, man. Isaiah Wong was tremendous. Nigel Pack was big time. Like, they're going to spread you out and play small. It may take Houston a second to adjust. But then halftime comes. And so the second half of that game will be fun to watch.
I will say, I mean, the job Miami did on the glass against Indiana, right? All the talk, they're undersized, whatever. Like, they took it to Indiana. And so if they can just hang around on the inside with Houston and make it a guards game and say, all right, we've got Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack, you've got Marcus Sasser and Jamal Shed. Let's see who wins. If you're Larinaga, you take that every day of the week.
Yeah. When you threw out the glass, Kevin, like, Houston's got grown men now. Like, like Juwan White, we played against him. The dude came into the game. I never seen it on paper before. Somebody averaging 4 offensive rebounds. 2's good. 2's really good. Like, if you're getting 2 offensive rebounds a game, that's really good. Like, we would, tell our guys in the scouting report, hey, this is real. My man was getting 4 a game, and that was a year ago.
Different.
And I'm like, he's a monster. And, guys like him and Shebue, like, there's no scout. You can't scout that. I mean, you can talk about it. It's not like double team in the post It's not like trapping a guy in a pick and rolls. Like the shot goes up, somebody has to go hit. I remember when I played, and you guys may not remember this, Arizona back in the day when they had Jason Gardner and Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson. They had a dude named Eugene Ederson, big old afro. He had high socks, and all he did was go get offensive rebounds. And I like had to go try to box him out one time, and I hit him as hard as I could, and he did not move 1 inch, like at all. You know, we had Mitch McGary at Michigan. He was like, you could go smack him with everything you got, like, and he just looks at you. Like Jerome Roberts is one of those dudes.
Yeah. No, they're built different for sure. We're going to get into the rest of the Sweet 16. And then, of course, we'll answer any questions you have in the afters. We got to get to a break. You're listening to the Field of 68 After Dark here on SiriusXM channel 84 and YouTube. Back after this.
You're clear.
So one of the things that I always find myself wishing that I had was just like this time capsule, because my friends and I will just text each other all these different takes and all these different arguments. And then, of course, we'll forget about them. We won't remember them, and we have no way of remembering who was right. Well, that's where Vaulted comes in. That is the solution. Vaulted is a new sports prediction app that turns your opinions into facts. You can store all your predictions and hot takes in your own vault right now and forever. Challenge your friends, keep track of the results, and prove that you are, in fact, the smartest. This is something that Jeff Goodman will never have to worry about a day in his life. Vaulted will also be releasing more than 50 pools in the next 3 months. So download the app at the link below. Sign up for your 3-month trial and store your predictions now and forever.
There you go, Goodman. There you go, buddy.
30 seconds.
In this 30 seconds, Coach, so I was at your game in Vegas when you played Houston.
Oh, geez.
I was right behind Kelvin's bench. You guys were down like 31-13, and I think you guys got like an offensive rebound or they missed, or Houston missed a free throw, and Kelvin turns to his bench and literally screams, "We can't do anything right." And like from now on, I'll never, like, it completely changed my view of Kelvin said. I was like, this guy's a maniac.
Grown man.
Here you go.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We're on YouTube. Like, subscribe. If you got questions, let us know in the chat. We'll get to those in the afters. And, of course, we're on SiriusXM channel 84. A few more matchups that we need to touch on, fellas. Xavier, Texas. I mean, I feel like in terms of just styles here, really intrigued by this game. What's it look like if, let's just say, Xavier pulls it off? If Xavier wins this game, about how does it look? What has to happen?
The game's in the high 80s because that's what they do. You know, they still struggle defensively. They're a little bit better without Fremantle, just because they're smaller, quicker, you know, more switchable. But they score. I mean, you got to keep up with them offensively. And I thought Kennesaw State did as good a job as anybody I've seen all year in the first round game. And they kind of took their foot off the pedal, right? You got to keep really scoring. You have to keep scoring against Xavier. You have to keep scoring against Miami. Like, these teams offensively are up there, you know. And so it's got to be in the 80s for them to get it done. Nunji, I think, has to have a big role in it, you know, because he's an inside-outside big, and he's a matchup problem. Yeah, obviously you got the guards, but if they're winning it, you know, if it's in the 50s, 60s, like, that's just not been their game this year. And I think Texas can win that type of game. They can do that to you, but they can also play it with pace. Like, they're not afraid. They got good guards. Like, they'll run with you. I just don't know if I would want to run with Xavier and play at that pace.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts there, Kevin?
Yeah, I just think Sule Boom has to be the best guard on the floor, right? And this is kind of a unique game for him. He's playing against Rodney Terry. Rodney Terry coached him at UTEP, right? Like, I don't know how the emotions will be there, but obviously that's just like an added bonus to an NCAA tournament game. He's been just okay so far in the tournament. They need elite Sule Boom if they're going to go.
I'll say this to you. It's weird, Kevin. Like, I coached against Chris Holtman, Butler, Ohio State in year one, and like some of the guys that they were just playing for Holtman last year, and it took them like a half to get out of the fact that their old coach was standing over there on the other side. We came back and won in overtime, but So for Sule, like it's an odd deal, and I was sitting there, trying to get them to snap out of it. So I don't know how long, and it's later on in the season. That was a November game. This is March, but it is an interesting deal when you have that, with your players. Like I was trying to figure out what was going on with our guys, and our assistants were like, "Well, coach, their old coach is standing right down there. Like they got to look at him every time they run down the court."
Now, if Eric Musselman wants to take his shirt off again, which I mean, it's got to be a win. You can't take your shirt off after an L. Like how Kevin, how different will the game plan need to be against UConn versus what Arkansas did against Kansas? How much different does it have to be, if at all?
I mean, I think it's generally the same recipe, which is make it physical, and then in the half court rely on Council and potentially Davis just getting downhill and making plays. I think they have to do. I mean, Kansas has been a good rebounding team, but they're still small. And UConn is not small and is the best offensive rebounding team in the country. So Arkansas's bigs have to do a tremendous job of keeping it to one shot, because especially for a team like UConn that's as good shooting the three as they are, those offensive rebounds are easy twos or they're easy threes. And either way, that's not a good recipe. But I think if you can limit second chance, if you can keep UConn out of their, semi-transition when they can hunt threes and really take over games like they have in the second half of both tournament games so far, I think Arkansas's got a chance, because Ricky Council is one of the most, one of the best scorers in the country.
Yeah. Go ahead, LaVall.
Connecticut, it's like Andre Jackson can't guard everybody. I mean, he's so yeah. If he's on Ricky Council, you got Nick Smith, you got Anthony Black. He can't be everywhere. That's where they've been challenged, just with the other perimeter defenders not named Andre Jackson. And so Tristan Newton's got to step up defensively, and Calcaterra or Naeem Aline, whoever's in the lineup at the time on the perimeter. And it'll be an interesting matchup because, similar to like Rutgers Purdue, right? Like Rutgers has a bunch of 6'5", 6'6" dudes that can pressure and use length on the perimeter to disrupt the passes that go into Zach Edey. Well, that's what Arkansas has defensively. They got a bunch of wings, guards with size that can disrupt passes to go into Sanogo and Klingon, which means Jordan Hawkins has to play really well, and Tristan Newton has to play really well. And then, in transition is where, Connecticut can get you, because they are a good rebounding team.
Yeah, blow through these really quick here as we get to near the end of the show. UCLA Gonzaga out there in Vegas. That's a hell of a game, man. I'm excited for that one. But is this one, Kevin, the game where UCLA's, how thin they are in the front court with the injuries, is this where it finally shows up for them?
I think it is, just because I don't know that they have they're going to have to really keep the score down, because I don't think they can afford this to be a track meet. If this thing gets to 80, it's going to be really tough. But I tell you what, UCLA is the toughest team I have seen in the country this season. And they will be gritty. They will find a way to be in this game, no matter who's available. They'll have Hawkes, they'll have Campbell. And I think I wouldn't underestimate Mick Cronin finding some kind of creative coverages to throw at Drew Timme. He's seen everything, but they just got to do something different, especially if Adam Bona is going to be a little bit limited.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, they haven't had an opponent get to 75 in like 2 months. And so that's just how Mick's doing it, and those guys are bought in, and they'll do an even better job. Again, like you said with Zakai, you lose a guy, everybody's attention and engagement ramps up because they know that they have a missing piece. So it'll be interesting to see just the pace of play.
Yeah. Blowing through these here, 5-1 matchup. LaVall, can San Diego State, with the way they play, how tough they are, can they slow that Alabama train down? Do they have what it takes to do that?
I said this the other night, John, like they're physical. This is what Alabama is when they've struggled. Who's it been? It's been against, Connecticut and their physicality. Gonzaga, it was up and down. It's 100 points, 90. Oklahoma got really physical with them and beat them by a lot. Tennessee, all right, Texas A&M, so San Diego State falls right in line with those teams in terms of the physicality and the defensive mindset to be able to have a chance to pull it off.
Kevin, are you stepping in front of that Bama train with San Diego State?
I'm not betting against the Tide, but I will say this, right? Like if San Diego State's gonna have a chance, they got to suck the life out of this game. They got to keep it low paced, put pressure on Alabama with 10 minutes to go that they're in a close game, and hope that Matt Bradley, Matt Bradley is a tough shot maker. He's going to take some shots in the mid range. They're not going to be the most efficient shots in the world, but Bama's defense gives you those, right? They're going to get in their deep drop. They're going to, they're going to let Matt Bradley take 18 footers. And if he makes a bunch of them, San Diego State might pull the upset.
All right, 1 minute from each of you. Make me the case that Princeton can pull this off. All right, 1 minute from each. Kevin, you're on the clock first. Go.
Oh man, I mean, look, they've been awesome in this tournament. They've won the rebounding battle in both games against really big, really physical, really athletic teams. They won't be scared of Creighton. They're gonna again kind of try to suck the life out of the game, keep it a little slower, and hope that Langborg and Alaco, their shooters, can make more threes like they did in game 2 than they did in game 1 when they struggled from deep. They do that, they've got a chance against a really talented Creighton team.
Yeah, the three-point shot's the great equalizer, right? And they're a good three-point shot. I don't know if they're great, but it's hard to get twos against Creighton with Kalkbrenner standing in the paint. And so to control the pace and make open threes. Now you don't get a lot of them with Creighton because they can stick to everybody and make it play 2-on-2 in the middle of the court. I think the off-ball action is where they're going to have to go, right? Not a lot of pick and roll stuff like with the back cuts and the movement, just Princeton-style offense and get clean looks that way.
You know, we have a little bit of time here. We've got a couple of minutes. I mean, this was a top 5 preseason team. You know, and I know it's, they lost Kalkbrenner for a lot of the season, but is it really that surprising that, like, they have a path here to the Elite Eight, potentially the Final Four? I said on the first show that I did it here, Creighton feels like a team that could make a run. They were a top 5 team for a reason.
Yeah, I mean,
no, not at all. I think the guy we're still waiting on is Arthur Kaluma.
Yeah,
like Ryan Nembhard is now playing like, he wants to make up for not being in the tournament with him last year. And, Kalkbrenner's doing what he does. Trey Alexander's been great, and Shireman. Arthur Kaluma's the deciding factor for them to push this thing to a Final Four, maybe even, a Monday night game.
1 minute, Kevin. Any lasting thoughts on Creighton and their run here?
I mean, my general feel is that a team that doesn't foul, that doesn't give you second chances, that makes its threes, and that defends the rim is going to be a pretty tough team to beat. And those are the 4 things that Creighton does really, really well. So, they're not going to be out-talented by pretty much any team, right? Maybe Alabama a little bit, but they won't be overwhelmed. Yeah. And you love what Kalkbrenner brings to the table. So I'd love to see Princeton hang and potentially win that game. It'd be cool to see another 15 in the Elite Eight, but man, I also think that a potential Creighton-Alabama matchup for a spot in Houston would be a lot of fun.
We got to roll. Unfortunately, this is we got the heart out here. This has been the Field of 68 After Dark here on Sirius XM. Same time tomorrow. We'll see you in the afters.
And you're clear.
Sorry, fellas, we had the heart out there on Sirius. But yeah, go perfect. Yeah, because we got the afters here a little bit. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, don't forget now, St. Thomas went to Omaha early in the year and about knocked Creighton off, with a similar style as a Princeton.
That is true.
I really do. I love Creighton. I think they win, but it would not shock me in the slightest if Princeton keeps this thing really interesting and keeps it within a possession or two. I think I might bet it, honestly.
They play with a confidence.
The way
they played against Missouri, the way it was like they were as confident. Them and FDU, man, those dudes, they walked out there like they're supposed to win.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, when you beat Arizona and you beat Missouri, I know Creighton is
pressure's on Creighton, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is. And I will say, if I was going to make a case for Creighton here, it would be the difference defensively. Creighton is so much they're worlds away defensively from those two teams, right? Yeah. So I think that could be the only thing that spooks me a little bit about Princeton. But I think you get here, right? You're feeling it. You're feeling it in the Sweet 16. You're not going to be intimidated.
I also think and maybe this is me getting too mental into the whole thing, but I think being at a place like Princeton where there is real perspective about basketball, instead of just being like, oh my gosh, you're the celebrities of campus. Like I think the risk, because I think there's always the risk when the upset team makes it to the second weekend. Like you're going to go back to campus, you're going to be the star, you're going to be blitzed with all this media attention coverage.
Doug Eater from St. Peter's.
Right. And St. Peter's handled it well, but like, man, they were celebrities, right? Princeton hasn't really had that. Maybe part of that's because of FDU. Part of that's because just on campus, like it's Princeton. Like kids are in the library. You know what I mean? But I actually think I do think that helps them a little bit. Like I don't think they will be blinded by the lights. They won't be excited about their NIL deals, whatever. Like they're really good. Tosan is a great matchup problem because of his ability to pass and make plays. He's gonna have to be really good. I'm curious what he can get at the rim because obviously, like we talked about,
I see it going honestly 2 ways, only two. I see Princeton being really disciplined, not turning the ball over, getting to the free throw line, making timely threes efficiently, and they stay within the game. Maybe they even have a chance to win it at the end, or they just get overwhelmed from the jump and Creighton just runs off on them and they get nothing over Kalkbrenner and Creighton plays a clean game. And this looks something like, 80-64 or something. Like, I don't think there's really any in between. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I see it.
To play from behind in this game.
Exactly.
Right? They got down like 8 against Arizona, but they avoided getting run out of the gym early. And I think that's
Arizona's so bad defensively, right? Like they're just so bad defensively that you're never going to be out of it with them, honestly.
It's true.
So, do we have anything in the chat, Trevor? What's up?
Yeah, let's hit a few chat questions here before we get out. Somebody asked, which coach gets their program back to a Sweet 16 first? Cooley at Georgetown or Ricky P at St. John's?
Flip a coin. They're both coming, but I don't know. Flip a coin.
I think I'll take Rick just because I think he inherits a little bit better of a situation, especially if he can bring over a guy like Walter Clayton in the backcourt. Like if you got Soriano, who's already a load, if you could potentially bring back AJ Storr, who's a big time shooter, you get a playmaker like Clayton in there, they could be like top half Big East team year one, and your top half Big East team like we've seen this year. That puts you right in the conversation to be a second weekend NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Rick because he's done it more, right? Like he's just done it at multiple places, and I think he's gonna fit right in there. And he brings that whole New York shit. You know what I mean? Like I think he's people will buy into that. So I'll go Rick. Although I agree about like you could flip. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they
It's all about what happens in the portal.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, can I answer again in a month after?
Yeah, exactly.
Really gets
Yep.
It's all about what happens in the portal.
I'm not sure.
The interesting thing would be like if any of the I don't think any of the the Providence guys like Bryce Hopkins can't transfer again without sitting.
Yep. Yep.
Jared Bynum's in the 5th year, so he's a little different case and
brutal.
And I don't know if they'll go with that'll make a whole new different storyline, man. It'll be interesting. But they'll both get it done. Is who's quicker at?
Agreed.
I don't know if any of you guys would have a specific name, but several people are asking who should Penn State target to replace Shrewsberry.
I think maybe Matt Langle would be a guy I'd think about. I think you can't go wrong with a lot of these guys. Like Mike Rhodes has ties to that region. He does a tremendous job. I think the only thing I would say with Rhodes is it's such a different style from right. Like you've just built a program and started to find a foundation of like, hey, we're going to spread you out. We're going to shoot it. We're going to be super skilled and smart. And you're going to swing that to, okay, we're going to, have rock fights and battle with you defensively and get, gritty kids who want to, who may not be as offensively gifted. I think that'd be a really difficult swing. And that's why I think someone like Langle would make a lot of sense just because obviously it's different. They don't run the same stuff. It's not like you're going from the Purdue tree, but I think a guy who's going to come in and have a bit of a different approach offensively and try to get skill and try to attack the Big Ten a little bit differently. I think that would make a lot of sense. And he's got ties to that state from being in Philly for many years.
I don't. I can't stand doing that stuff.
The challenge, right, is
there's a lot of good coaches out there.
Yeah, and the challenge is right that it's so regional. Like that matters so much, and also like past ties. Because like if you just put names on a piece of paper, right, for a Big Ten head coaching job, Amir Abdur-Rahim would be in that conversation based off the job he's done at Kennesaw. Dusty May should be involved in any opening, but he's not going to leave, right? I mean, is he going to leave FAU for Penn State? Like it's not really like a fit there, So
the thing I would say with Penn State, and it's similar to what LaVall said about Notre Dame, is that like Penn State's Big Ten school recruiting against Midwest teams.
Yep.
But it's never going to be the first or second choice for any of these kids from Indiana or Ohio.
Exactly.
The only place it might be is if you're going into like Pat Chambers had a lot of success recruiting Philly and got like Tony Carr and guys like that. But even that's hard because you're then asking them to come play all their games in the Midwest and all these college towns, and also you're competing against Villanova and Temple and all the Big East schools who are going to be more regional. So it's just a very tricky job. It is, doesn't have a ton of history, but there is a little bit of momentum here. And I think hopefully the commitment that people were showing to try to keep Shrewsberry from a salary and also from an NIL standpoint, hopefully that carries over to whoever is the next guy at Penn State.
Yeah, I would say somebody with a unique. I mean, it's just somebody with a unique style. You can't come in there and try to outdo the Big Ten at what the Big Ten does necessarily, because it's just a little harder to get those guys. So I thought Micah had a unique style. Like you were at Northwestern, I thought Carmody had a unique style. He just got injuries at the wrong time, but the Princeton style was just different within the league, and so whoever brings something similar to that to the table. And I don't know who that would be. I don't know the VCU style. Just that. Can you get those guys at Penn State?
Right. That'd be the question.
Speaking of Northwestern, Andrew in the chat said, "Hey Kevin, have expectations changed at Northwestern after this year? And what's the temperature check on Chris Collins?"
I mean, he's got some time now after the success they had this year.
The temperature check. Build a statue. They've never been until he got there. What are we talking about?
I think the thing I'll say is like they go to the tournament in 2017 and there's all this momentum. You're building a new arena. They're getting all these recruits, right? That's when they signed like Pete Nance and Miller Kopp, top 150 guys. And over the next 5 years, I think lost a lot of that buzz and the hype about Northwestern. And this year gave them an opportunity to get it back, because they got to the tournament. They brought, the fan support was incredible. They stormed the court. They beat Purdue. They win a game in the dance, right? Like they're going to have a similar opportunity to make a little bit of a splash in recruiting, to build the fan base up and do those things. And I just think it's imperative that this time it not be wasted, right? And obviously that's not what Chris intended. And I think he's done a good job of like communicating, we disappointed the year we brought everybody back. And once that happened, we had to rebuild, and it just took time, because that's the place Northwestern is. It takes time to rebuild it. But I think Northwestern, I think you give them some time to rebuild it, potentially, depending, they have some questions roster wise, because Bowie could come back if he wants to. He has a COVID year. Audice could come back if he wants to. He has a COVID year, and Robbie Barron does too. So give us a month to see where the roster is, but there's no hot seat at this point for Collins for quite some time after the year they had this year.
Kevin, let me ask you this: how many times have Northwestern been to the tournament?
2 times.
Who was the coach?
Chris Collins.
What are we talking about? What was the expectation before he got there?
Right, but I will say this: Northwestern's a different job right now. Right, Northwestern in 2010 was wearing Russell athletic gear and playing in a gymnasium and had no hype and was boring. Right, now Northwestern it's Under Armour, but they have a real apparel deal. They're winning in football. They were winning in football until the last 2 years, but that's its own problem.
Do they have an NIL? So Stanford, Northwestern, these schools.
It's a unique place.
Are they in? Because what happens is the alumni bases. The status of the prestige of the institution and degree, NIL isn't really something they're excited about, and now that is a real factor. So I would say that'll be a game changer if It's like, there's some alums from Northwestern that have it now, but
I mean, Northwestern,
that's where they want to do with their money.
They've spent over $1 billion on athletic facilities in the last decade.
Yeah, that's different than giving money to players.
Oh, I know. If they peel off like 10 million of it, they'd be the best team in the Big Ten. Well, maybe not, but you get the point,
Yeah, and nobody would have like Harvard, Northwestern, and Stanford pull together like 6 people, and you could take care of a couple teams in terms of a collective and however you want to set it up. But I don't know. They have to be interested in it.
Yes, no doubt.
All right, last one for me. There's a Spartans fan in the chat who says he has a galaxy brain question and to stick with him. So here it comes.
Oh, dear.
Tom Izzo said he wanted one more deep run in him. If he gets to the Final Four or further, do you think it's possible he pulls a Jay Wright this offseason and just retires?
Who's this, Izzo?
Yeah.
No, I was with Iz in the fall. He's after another national championship before he shuts it down.
If he wins the title this year?
If he wins it, maybe.
They're not winning it. They're not. I mean,
but that's what he's after. And they got an unbelievable class coming in next year. But when I was with him in the fall, he was complaining about NIL and all the stuff and Mel Tucker had to deal with in the football team. And Iz is great. I love him to death. And I said, what are you doing, coach? Like everybody else is hopping out. He's like, as soon as I'm not having fun, but I'm still having fun doing it. I want to, he wants to get another banner.
I'll never rule anything out in this day and age, right? There are a lot of guys moving on, but I do think Izzo's wired a little bit differently. And again, maybe if there's a chance to ride off into the sunshine, win a championship, that'd be its own thing. But like you said, I mean, that class is amazing. Like Fears is dope. I love Cohen Carr. Booker's super talented. Gary Norman like that is the type of class that can get Michigan State to like the top of the Big Ten for multiple years running. So, I think that has to weigh on his mind as well. Like they're not done winning, even if they go to a Final Four here this year.
Yeah, I guess we got to do toast of the night, huh, Trev?
Yep.
Well, I'll start it off. I'm gonna give a toast to a quality, esteemed, one of the best in the business college basketball journalists who I thought did a great job today. Explaining, right? Even if it was via anonymous assistant coaches and head coaches, the reasoning behind Ed Cooley leaving Providence for Georgetown. So, fellas, I'm gonna give a toast to Jeff Goodbloom, who is a fantastic journalist, right?
No comment.
He's one of the best. Great follow. Goodbloom Hoops.
That should be it. That should be the only one. That's it.
No comment.
Goodbloom Hoops on Twitter. This has been the Field of 68 After Dark. Same time tomorrow. Hey, go enjoy Vegas, man.
I do want to toast. Can I give a shout out to my man Ron Sanchez at Charlotte?
Yes, great toast.
Yeah, there's only so many. There's only a couple teams that are going to finish on a win. The first postseason tournament championship in the history of Charlotte basketball. And I did a tremendous job. 20+ wins. They've gotten better every year.
Hell yeah.
He's crushing it out there. So shout out to my man Ron Sanchez.
Cheers to that.
Love it. All right, go enjoy Vegas. LaVall, it's been a pleasure, man. Enjoyed it. And same time tomorrow. We'll be doing it after the Sweet 16. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Listen to us on SiriusXM, College Sports Radio, Channel 84. For LaVall, for Kevin, I'm